Turns out Sancholo was like friends with this character, Abilene, I believe that's her name, the woman's name. I'm sorry, it's hard for me to remember everybody's names from movies, because I did watch it a little while ago. I don't know why I'm apologizing. I should just keep playing the game and reviewing. Hello everybody and welcome to Blockbuster Review. If you don't know what that is, it is where I play a single game of Tetris Marathon and review a film before the blocks reach the top or until 150 lines. Spoilers are at line 50. And we start the review on go. So the movie Vengeance, written and directed by B.J. Novak, is a dark comedy? I'm not sure what to call it. It's the story of a writer for The New Yorker, Ben Manalowitz. I don't want to completely butcher it, but Ben is he's a douchebag. I think the movie has no problem painting him as such. He hooking up with women all the time, talking about them very disrespectfully with John Mayer. Yeah, John Mayer's in this movie. It was kind of weird. And he really wants to make a podcast, and he wants to make a podcast that's going to solve the crisis in America, the identity of America. And he's talking to his friend, who is played by Issa Rae. I might be completely screwing up that name. She plays Eloise, who is kind of like a podcast producer for a big podcast network. And he keeps talking to her about these ideas, and she seems interested in them because he really wants to get more exposure than just being a New Yorker writer. He hooks up with a girl, and after he gets done hooking up with the girl, he gets a phone call from someone in Texas who claims to be his girlfriend's brother. He's like, I don't have a girlfriend. I'm not sure what you're talking about. He looks through his phone, given the information that the guy gives, to figure out who he's even talking about. And once he realizes, he's like, wow, that's really sad. I'll send flowers. And the guy basically refuses to accept that and says, no, I'll pick you up at the airport. This guy is going to Texas. He's going to Texas to go to the funeral of a girl that he sort of hooked up with once, kind of. He goes to the funeral, and it's this is where it's kind of like a dark comedy. It's this guy, he's a douchebag. He's now thrusted into this situation where he has to pretend, at least he feels like he has to pretend like he knows this person, and he has to be something for these people that he is not, which is this woman's boyfriend. And they seem to think that they were an item, they were a thing. And after the funeral, which was incredibly awkward, he's driving with her brother, played by Boyd Holbrook. He's playing Ty Shaw, and he's awesome in this movie. Can't talk about how great this this actor was as this brother from Texas. And he basically stops the car after they share a little bit of a moment where they agree, and he goes, look, we're gonna find out who actually killed my sister, because she was murdered. The report is that she OD'd on opiates in the middle of a field after a party, and her brother just doesn't accept that because, according to him, his sister had never had more than an aspirin. They start the investigation, and B.J. Novak's character, Ben, sells it as a podcast. And, of course, his producer, callously maybe, says, like, oh my gosh, dead white girl, drugs, intrigue, mystery, sure. And he's framing it as like, no, it's actually these people are delusional. He's using it as a way to describe the entire community of people in these rural areas. They're delusional, they're crazy, they're willing to accept these conspiracy theories rather than facts because of why. This is what my podcast is going to be figuring out. And then over the movie, he actually starts the investigation, and he grows to like these people. There's, of course, very fun, just culture shock moments and just straight comedy bits dealing with Texas and this douchebag from New York. But it has him coming in contact with interesting characters. One is like the small town's drug dealer, played by Sancholo, who must be the guy. That's the drug dealer. He did it to send a message, or he did it for blah blah blah. Turns out Sancholo was like friends with this character, Abilene, I believe that's her name, the woman's name. I'm sorry, it's hard for me to remember everybody's names from movies, because I did watch it a little while ago. I don't know why I'm apologizing. I should just keep playing the game and reviewing. He talks to this drug dealer who turns out is like, I would never hurt her. She called me to read Harry Potter to me when my parents wouldn't let me get it. But he also, that drug dealer has the same idea, which is she would never touch drugs. BJ Novak's character comes in contact with this record producer, this small record producer out in the middle of nowhere, who turns out to be a very seemingly intelligent and cool guy who's basically like, look, man, the creativity is not dead in these areas, it's just nobody's here to bring it out of them. That's what I wanted to do, to give back. And he seems cool. That's played by Ashton Kutcher. His name is very weird, and I wanted to be able to say it, but now I don't want to screw up. There's a whole lot of jokes and fun names in this movie. Just watch it. But every single person that he comes in contact with is like, this person would never do drugs. So then he starts to think maybe there is a conspiracy. Suddenly his car blows up when he goes to it in the process of making the podcast series. And it all seems like it's coming out like maybe it was a conspiracy until someone lets it slip like, no, she was totally a pillhead. That was a problem we were trying to deal with. So then he gets upset at the family. He says some horrible things, very rude things about them and their culture and who they are as people. And then he kind of puts some shit together and realizes, oh, crap, I can get into her phone, and finds out she had changed the name in the phone to be his name, but she was actually speaking to someone else who she cried out to. Well, not cried out. She texted while she was dying in the middle of this field, and he's now going to figure out who that was. And it turns out to be that record producer who also produced a couple of songs for her, which is what led her to go to New York in the first place, and where she met this Mark character. There's this great scene. Basically, the entire point of this review is for this one scene where the main character and this like record producer, who is straight up feeding drugs to an underage girl in the middle of this tent, and then has a crony like drag her out to go out to that field where they find the ODs. And he's like, look, man, you can give your story. You can produce it, and it will come out, and then I'll be interviewed, and then people will start having takes about it. And then it won't matter what happened to that girl because she did it to herself with the drugs. And then I'll just get more publicity, and you'll get more publicity, and then nothing even happened because she's just somebody nobody cares about. And it's like this moment where you're like, oh shit, like this is this really dark, honest, like messed up thing about this movie. Like it's so true. Like if I had heard this story, I'd be like, wow, that's interesting. Like if it's a Netflix documentary, if it's a podcast, whatever. And then I would not care. And then the main character, Ben, shoots that dude and walks away, and because this town doesn't do anything about crime, it gets swept under the rug, just like her death. I did not do this movie justice, Vengeance. It's on Peacock right now. Check it out. Very funny, very cool. Later.